Ladies and gentlemen, life is not a machine that we can control with switches and levers. It is a river. It flows, it bends, it changes its course. Yet, when the river shifts, most of us panic. We try desperately to push it back to where it once was, as though clinging to the past could bring us peace. But here is the secret. Peace does not come from resistance. It comes from alignment. Alan Watts once reminded us that the universe is a dance, not a war. To dance with life is to move with its rhythm, not against it. Every change, even the ones we resist, carries within it the seed of growth. When life shifts, whether it's a career, a relationship, or even the tides of your own mind, you are being asked to transform. The tragedy is not that life changes. The tragedy is that we waste our energy forcing it back into what it used to be. Imagine holding onto a leaf in the autumn, painting it green to stop it from falling. It is not only futile, it blinds us to the beauty of the seasons. The same is true for our own lives. So when life shifts, stop forcing it back, breathe, listen, flow. What appears as an ending may, in truth, be an invitation to a beginning you have yet to discover. The art of living is not control. It is surrender. And in surrender there is freedom. Life is fluid, not fixed. This is one of the most important truths we often forget while caught in the routines and structures of our daily existence. We like to imagine that life can be pinned down, scheduled, and permanently secured. We tell ourselves that if we achieve a certain status, find a certain partner, or secure a certain job, then everything will settle into place. But life is not a fixed object we can hold on to. It is more like water slipping through our hands, ever moving, ever changing. The very nature of life is impermanence. Every breath you take is different from the last, every moment is new, and no experience can be repeated in the exact same way. Just as a river does not flow backward, life does not stay in one position waiting for us to catch up. To expect stability, permanence, or unchanging certainty is to fight against the essence of existence itself. When we forget this, we set ourselves up for disappointment, because what we cling to will inevitably shift. Think about your own life for a moment. The person you were 5 years ago is not the person you are today. Your thoughts, your desires, your fears, your relationships, they have all evolved. Even your body is not the same. Cells regenerate, experiences shape you, and time itself changes your form. If you had insisted on staying exactly the same as you once were, you would have denied yourself the natural growth that came with experience. Life's beauty lies in this constant unfolding, this ongoing transformation. Yet, many of us resist this truth. We cling to the past because it feels safe, or we try to freeze the present because it feels comfortable. We tell ourselves, this is how things should always be. But life does not obey such demands. When you try to force it into a fixed shape, it becomes like trying to dam a river with your bare hands. The water finds a way around you, and in the struggle, you exhaust yourself. There is wisdom in recognizing that life's fluidity is not a threat, but a gift. Change, though sometimes painful, is what allows renewal. Seasons turn, and so do the chapters of our own story. Just as spring cannot exist without winter, your growth cannot exist without change. The shifting tides of life carry you to places you may never have reached had you remained still. Every challenge, every ending, every unexpected turn is part of this natural flow. Instead of fearing change, imagine embracing it. Imagine seeing yourself not as a rigid object trying to stay the same, but as a wave in the ocean, constantly moving, constantly reshaping, yet still part of something vast and whole. When you adopt this perspective, you stop demanding permanence and start appreciating impermanence. You learn to live not by holding onto what is passing, but by fully experiencing it while it is here. In this way, the truth that life is fluid becomes not a source of anxiety, but a source of peace. You stop fighting the current, and you allow yourself to be carried. In the end, it is not the fixedness of life that gives it meaning, but its movement, its flow, and its endless capacity to change. Resistance creates suffering, At first, this may sound overly simplistic, but when you examine your own life, you begin to see how deeply true it is. Human beings are wired with a deep desire for stability and certainty. We crave control. We want to believe that if we work hard enough, plan carefully enough, and hold tightly enough, then life will unfold exactly as we expect. But when reality shifts, when events do not match our expectations, our instinct is to resist. We push back, we cling, and in that very act of resistance, suffering is born. Pain itself is an unavoidable part of existence. You cannot live without encountering loss, failure, disappointment, or change, but suffering is different. Suffering is pain plus resistance. It is the tension that comes from wishing things were otherwise when they are not. Think of a storm arriving at sea. The sailor who resists the storm, who curses the waves and refuses to adjust the sails, will find themselves exhausted, broken, or even destroyed. The sailor who accepts the storm, who works with it rather than against it, may still experience hardship, but they survive and often emerge wiser and stronger. This truth appears everywhere in our lives. When a relationship ends, we suffer most when we cannot accept its ending, when we replay the past over and over, trying to force it back into existence. When a job is lost, or when our health changes, the suffering grows not merely from the event itself, but from the mental battle against it. We say, it should not be this way, but life does not bend to our should. It only flows as it does. Alan Watts often spoke about the futility of resistance, reminding us that clinging to what no longer exists is like trying to hold onto smoke. It slips through your fingers no matter how tightly you grasp. The paradox is that the more we resist change, the more powerless we feel. We become trapped in an endless cycle of frustration and despair. And yet, the moment we let go even slightly, the burden lightens. Acceptance does not mean liking everything that happens. It means recognizing reality as it is, without the added weight of this should not be happening. Resistance arises from fear, fear of uncertainty, fear of loss, fear of being vulnerable. But the irony is that resisting does not protect us from these fears. It magnifies them. By refusing to accept life as it unfolds, we remain stuck in a battle we can never win. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows us to redirect our energy. Instead of fighting against what cannot be changed, we learn to adapt, to grow, and to discover new possibilities within the very change we once resisted. Consider how rivers carve valleys. They do not fight against the rocks. They wear them down through persistence and flow. In the same way, when you stop resisting and begin moving with life, you find a hidden strength. Suffering loosens its grip, and what once felt like destruction begins to reveal itself as transformation. The truth is simple yet profound. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and it is our resistance that creates the chains. The moment we release that resistance, we discover a quiet kind of freedom. Flow with the shift. To many, this phrase may sound like a surrender, a giving up of control, as if flowing with change means passively accepting whatever happens. But in truth, flowing with the shift is one of the most profound acts of strength and wisdom we can embody. It is not passivity, it is harmony. It is the art of aligning ourselves with the rhythm of life rather than standing stubbornly against it. When we flow with life, we recognize that change is not an interruption to our path. It is the path. Every shift, whether joyful or painful, carries within it a lesson, an opening, a chance to discover something we could not have seen otherwise. Think of a tree in the wind. If the tree refuses to bend, it breaks. But the tree that sways, that moves with the gusts, not only survives but grows stronger over time. Flexibility is not weakness. It is resilience. Most suffering arises when we insist that life should remain exactly as it was. We cling to a job, a person, or a way of being long after life has begun to move us in a new direction. Flowing with the shift does not mean denying our feelings of loss, but it does mean trusting that the change itself has a place in the larger design of our existence. When one chapter closes, another begins, but we can only step into it if we stop trying to rewrite the chapter that has ended. Alan Watts often said that life is like music. You don't play a song to get to its end point. You play it to enjoy the melody as it unfolds. In the same way, life cannot be forced into a straight line. It moves like a dance, with turns and spins and unexpected pauses. To resist the change in rhythm is to stumble, but to flow with it, to adjust our steps and find new movements, is to stay in the dance. Flowing with the shift also invites creativity. When we release the need for life to return to its old shape, we open ourselves to new shapes we could not have imagined. A career loss might reveal a hidden passion. The ending of a relationship might open space for a deeper connection with ourselves. Even illness, as painful as it is, can bring new awareness of what truly matters. By flowing with change, we transform challenges into opportunities for growth. Of course, this does not mean abandoning direction or purpose. Flowing is not drifting aimlessly. Rather, it is steering while listening, like a sailor adjusting the sails to catch the wind, rather than demanding the wind blow in a different direction. We still guide our lives, but with sensitivity to the currents that surround us. To flow with the shift is to trust that life is wiser than our limited plans. It is to recognize that every ending carries within it the seed of a beginning, and every detour may be leading us to a place more meaningful than the one we were clinging to. When you align with life's flow, you stop living in fear of change and begin to live in harmony with it. You discover that the river is not your enemy, it is your home. Transformation is hidden in endings. At first glance, an ending feels like nothing more than loss, absence, or collapse. When something familiar leaves our lives, a relationship, a job, a stage of youth, even an old belief, we often see only the void it creates. The finality of it frightens us, and we mourn what is gone. But if we look closely beyond the pain, we begin to see that every ending is also a seed, and like all seeds, it must break apart before something new can grow. Life is full of cycles. Nature shows us this truth again and again. The tree loses its leaves in autumn, and the ground appears barren in winter. Yet it is within that very barrenness that renewal is being prepared. Without the death of the leaf, there can be no spring bloom. Without the night, there can be no dawn. Endings, though bitter, are the very soil in which transformation takes root. Our resistance to endings often comes from fear. We cling to what is known because stepping into the unknown feels terrifying. But the truth is that what ends is not the destruction of who we are. It is the clearing away of what no longer serves us. Endings are not meant to punish us, but to create space. Imagine if we never shed old skin, never let go of war, not identities, never allowed chapters to close. We would remain trapped, stagnant, unable to grow into the fullness of what we are meant to become. Alan Watts often reminded us that the end of one thing is the beginning of another. Yet, our minds are trained to see the first half of this truth, the ending, while ignoring the second half, the beginning. Think of the person who loses a job they thought defined them. At first, the loss feels devastating, even humiliating. But in time, this ending often pushes them into new work, new passions, or a deeper understanding of themselves. What looked like collapse was in fact redirection. What looked like death was in fact rebirth. Transformation hidden in endings is not always immediate. Often, there is a period of emptiness, uncertainty, even grief. Just as the seed must lie buried in the dark soil before it sprouts, we too may sit in the shadows of endings before the light of new life appears. This waiting can be uncomfortable, but it is also sacred, for it is in that space of not knowing that change quietly prepares itself. Consider also the small endings in our daily lives, the ending of habits, the ending of old fears, the ending of ways of thinking that kept us small. Each time we let one of these die, we are reborn into a freer version of ourselves. Transformation does not always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it whispers softly, hidden beneath the quiet closing of a door. So, the next time you face an ending, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What is this ending making space for?" That shift in perspective turns endings from tragedies into turning points. You realize that life is not taking from you, it is reshaping you. The ending is not the story's conclusion. It is the blank page upon which the next chapter will be written. In this way, endings are never just endings. They are invitations. They ask us to trust that beneath the apparent collapse lies a deeper transformation waiting to unfold. And if we can learn to see that, then we will stop fearing endings and begin to welcome them as the gateways they truly are. Control is an illusion. This may be one of the hardest truths for the human mind to accept, because from childhood we are taught that if we plan enough, work enough, and hold tightly enough, life will bend to our will. We schedule, we strategize, we make lists and backup plans, all in the hope that we can keep things stable, predictable, and safe. Yet, no matter how carefully we build our walls of control, life has a way of reminding us that those walls are made of sand. Think of the countless events in your life that you never could have planned. The people you happened to meet who changed your path, the losses you did not expect, the sudden opportunities that came out of nowhere. Some of the most significant shifts in your journey were never under your control, and yet, here you are still alive, still moving forward, shaped by events that arrived uninvited. This shows us a profound truth. Life is not a chessboard where we move every piece. It is more like a vast ocean where we can steer our boat but cannot command the wind or the waves. The illusion of control often leads to endless anxiety. We think, if I can just manage every detail, then nothing will go wrong. But life is not built to obey our rigid plans. The more we cling, the more fragile we feel, because deep down we know we cannot control the uncontrollable. Illness, aging, the choices of others, the turning of seasons, all of these remain outside our grip. And so, when reality refuses to follow our script, we suffer. Alan Watts often spoke about the futility of forcing life. He reminded us that trying to control reality is like trying to grab hold of water. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you relax your hand, the water rests gently in your palm. In the same way, freedom comes not from force, but from surrender. Now, surrender does not mean laziness or resignation. It does not mean giving up on all effort or drifting aimlessly. It means recognizing the limits of your control and then acting wisely within them. You steer your ship, yes, but you stop demanding that the sea itself obey you. You trust the larger flow, even when it takes you somewhere unexpected. The paradox is that when you let go of control, you actually discover more freedom. You are no longer burdened with the impossible task of managing everything. You stop wasting energy on resisting what cannot be changed, and instead direct your energy toward what can be shaped. Your response, your perspective, your choices in the present moment. Look at nature. The river flows without needing to know its destination. The flower blooms without planning each petal. Control is not their way, yet they flourish. We, too, are part of this same natural unfolding. The more we fight to control life, the more alienated we feel. But when we surrender, when we stop forcing and start flowing, we experience a lightness, a trust, a freedom that control could never give us. So, the invitation is this: loosen your grip. Accept that uncertainty is not your enemy, but your teacher. In surrender, you will not lose yourself. You will find yourself, because freedom was never about controlling the river. It was about remembering you are the river. The wisdom of seasons is one of life's most gentle yet powerful teachers. All around us, nature is speaking in a language of change, but too often we do not listen. The turning of the seasons shows us that nothing in existence is permanent, and yet nothing is wasted. Each stage of the cycle has its own necessity, its own beauty, its own truth. To live well is to align ourselves with this rhythm, to understand that we too are subject to seasons of growth, of rest, of loss, and of renewal. Spring is the season of beginnings. Life bursts forth with energy, new shoots push through the soil, and what was once dormant comes alive again. In our own lives, we experience springs, moments of new opportunities, fresh ideas, and unexpected starts. These are the times of energy and momentum, when we feel the joy of creation. Yet spring cannot last forever, for the energy of growth leads naturally into summer. Summer is the season of flourishing, when what has begun now matures and thrives. In human life, summers are the times when we feel established, steady, and abundant. We reap the rewards of seeds planted earlier. Yet even this fullness cannot endure. The cycle continues, and summer yields to autumn. Autumn teaches perhaps the most difficult lesson, letting go. The trees release their leaves, not because they are failing, but because release is necessary for survival. In our lives, autumns are the moments when we must release relationships, identities, or roles that once sustained us but no longer serve us. We often resist this, clinging to what is familiar. But autumn shows us that letting go is not a weakness, it is wisdom. Only by releasing can we make space for the next cycle of growth. Then comes winter, the season of stillness. The land appears barren, the trees stand bare, and yet beneath the surface, life is quietly preparing. Winter teaches us the importance of rest, reflection, and silence. In our own lives, winters may appear as times of loss, emptiness, or waiting. But if we look closer, these periods are not wasted. They are the fertile darkness from which spring will one day return. Without winter, there could be no renewal. The wisdom of the seasons lies in this truth. Change is not random, but rhythmic. Each stage carries meaning. To demand endless summers is to deny the natural order of things. In the same way, to cling to youth, to resist endings, or to fear stillness is to live in disharmony with life. Peace comes when we accept that we too must turn with the seasons. Alan Watts often said that we do not come into this world, we come out of it, like leaves from a tree. Just as the leaf is not separate from the tree, we are not separate from the cycles of life. The seasons of nature are mirrored in the seasons of our own existence. When we honor this, we find balance. We stop forcing permanence, and instead learn to trust the ebb and flow, the rise and fall, the bloom and the decay. To embrace the wisdom of seasons is to live with humility. It is to know that nothing lasts forever, but nothing is ever truly lost. Everything transforms, and everything has its place. In this rhythm, we discover not fear of change, but reverence for it. Acceptance is power. At first, this may sound contradictory, because in our culture we often equate power with control, domination, and the ability to shape circumstances to our will. To accept something, on the other hand, is often mistaken for weakness or passivity. Yet the truth is the opposite. Real strength comes not from forcing life into our preferred shape, but from meeting it as it is without resistance. Acceptance is not giving up. It is seeing clearly, and from clarity, true power emerges. When we do not accept life as it is, we waste enormous energy in denial and resistance. We fight against what has already happened, replaying past events in our minds, insisting that things should be different. This resistance creates suffering and robs us of the present moment. But when we accept, we free ourselves. Acceptance allows us to stop fighting reality and instead engage with it honestly. Only then can we act with wisdom. As the saying goes, you cannot steer the boat if you refuse to see the river you are on. Acceptance is also the beginning of healing. Imagine someone who experiences loss, perhaps the end of a relationship. At first, they may deny it, cling to the past, or imagine ways it could have turned out differently. But it is only when they accept the ending that they can truly grieve, release, and eventually open themselves to new possibilities. Acceptance does not erase pain, but it transforms pain into growth. Without acceptance, pain hardens into bitterness. With acceptance, pain becomes a teacher. Alan Watts often emphasized that acceptance is not passive. It is not sitting back and saying, "I can do nothing." Rather, it is aligning yourself with the flow of life so that your actions are effective, not wasted in struggle. Think of martial arts. The fighter who resists with brute force often loses to the one who flows with the opponent's energy, redirecting it skillfully. In the same way, acceptance is the art of working with life, not against it. It allows you to see options you would have missed while consumed by resistance. Acceptance is also freedom. When you embrace life as it is, you are no longer chained to how it should be. You are free to move forward, free to adapt, free to create. Ironically, many people think control gives them freedom, but it is actually acceptance that liberates them. Control ties you to constant anxiety, while acceptance gives you peace. This is why acceptance is a form of power greater than control. It grounds you in reality. It gives you presence, clarity, and resilience. It allows you to face challenges without being crushed by them, because you no longer waste your strength denying what is. In the end, acceptance does not mean you stop striving for better. It means you begin from truth, not illusion. It means you stop fighting life's current and instead learn to swim with it. And when you do, you discover a strength deeper than resistance, a power born not from force but from harmony.